At exactly 3:17 every morning, someone knocked on the bedroom door. 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. The strange thing was that the house had been empty for more than 20 years. Daniel had recently bought the old house. Because it was unbelievably cheap, the previous owner had left almost everything behind. There was old furniture in the living room, faded photographs on the walls, dusty books on the shelves, and even an ancient wall clock that had stopped at exactly 3:17 when Daniel first saw the house. He could not understand why nobody wanted it. It was old, but it was beautiful. The house stood at the edge of a small town, surrounded by tall trees and an overgrown garden. The wooden walls were covered with years of dust, and several windows were cracked, but the structure was still strong. The real estate agent had warned Daniel before he signed the papers. "Are you sure you want this house?" Daniel smiled. "Why? Is there something wrong with it?" The agent looked uncomfortable. "People around here do not like talking about this place." Daniel laughed. "It is just an old house." The agent did not answer. A few minutes later, Daniel signed the papers. The house was officially his. He moved in on a cold afternoon. The sky was gray, and a strong wind was blowing through the trees. Daniel carried his boxes inside one by one. As soon as he stepped into the living room, he noticed how strangely quiet the house was. Not peaceful quiet. There was a difference. The furniture was still covered with white sheets. Dust covered the floor, the tables, and the bookshelves. Daniel pulled the sheet off an old sofa and sat down for a moment. "This place needs a lot of work," he said to himself. He continued exploring the house. In the hallway, he found several old photographs hanging on the wall. Most of them showed the same family, a man, a woman, and a little girl. Daniel did not think much of it. He assumed they were the previous owners. Then he noticed an old wooden wall clock. It was covered in dust. Daniel wiped the glass with his sleeve. The clock had stopped. The hands were pointing. At 3:17 he checked his phone. It was 4:26 in the afternoon. Daniel smiled. "Great. Even the clock is broken." He tried winding it. Nothing happened. He tapped the side. Still nothing. Eventually, he left it alone. That evening, Daniel unpacked a few boxes and prepared dinner. The rain began shortly after sunset. He sat alone in the living room watching television. While the rain hit the windows, the house made strange sounds. The wooden floor creaked. The pipes made clicking noises. The wind pushed against the old windows. Daniel was not worried. Old houses made noises. That was normal. Around midnight, he finally went upstairs. He chose the largest bedroom. He placed his phone on the nightstand, turned off the lamp, and climbed into bed. The rain continued outside. Daniel closed his several hours. Everything was completely normal. Then, at exactly 3:17 in the morning, knock. Daniel's eyes suddenly opened. He stared at the bedroom door. He did not move. A few seconds passed. Then he heard it again. Knock. Daniel slowly sat up. His heart began beating faster. Then came the third knock. Knock. 3 slow knocks. Exactly the same sound. Daniel looked at his phone. 3:17 in the morning. He stared at the screen for several seconds. Then he whispered to himself, "It is probably the wind." He got out of bed. The floor creaked beneath his feet. He walked toward the door. The closer he got, the colder the room seemed to become. Daniel reached for the handle. His hand stopped for some reason. He suddenly did not want to open the door. He took a deep breath. Then he turned the handle. The door opened slowly. The hallway was empty. Daniel looked to the left. Nothing. He looked to the right. Nothing. The hallway was completely dark. He switched on the light. The bulb flickered twice before turning on. Daniel stepped outside. "Hello, no answer." He walked toward the staircase. Nothing. He checked the bathroom. Empty. He checked the other bedroom. Empty. There was nobody in the house. Daniel returned to his bedroom and locked the door. He told himself it was nothing, but he could not fall asleep again. The next morning, sunlight entered through the curtains. Daniel woke up feeling exhausted. For a few seconds, he forgot about the knocking. Then he remembered. He got out of bed and went downstairs. While making coffee, he noticed the old wall clock. It was still showing 3:17. Daniel looked at his phone. 9:42 in the morning. He walked over to the clock. He tried moving the hands. They would not move. He pulled the clock away from the wall behind. It was a dark patch on the wallpaper. Daniel frowned. He was about to put the clock back when he heard a sound from upstairs. Creak. Daniel froze. He looked toward the ceiling. Another creak, creak. Someone sounded like they were walking across the floor. Daniel slowly placed the clock down. "Hello, no answer." He walked upstairs. The hallway was empty. He checked every room. Nothing. He opened the closets. Nothing. He even looked under the beds. Nothing. Daniel stood in the hallway for a moment. Then He heard a faint sound behind him. Soft whisper. He turned. Around nothing. He shook his head. I am just tired for the rest of the day. Daniel tried to ignore what had happened that night. The rain returned this time. It was much heavier. Thunder shook the windows. Daniel sat in the living room, reading one of the old books he had found. Suddenly, tap, tap, tap. Daniel slowly lowered. This sound had come from upstairs. He waited. Silence. Then again, tap, tap, tap. Daniel stood up. He looked toward the staircase. The lights flickered once, twice. Then every light in the house went out. Daniel grabbed his phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam moved across the dark living room. Everything looked normal. He slowly walked toward the stairs. Another flash of lightning lit up the hallway, and for just a second Daniel saw someone standing at the end of the upstairs hallway. A little girl. She was completely still. Daniel stopped. His flashlight shook slightly in his hand. The girl looked about 8 or 9 years old. She was wearing an old-fashioned white dress. Her long dark hair covered part of her face. Daniel could not see her eyes clearly. He whispered, "Are you okay?" The girl did not answer. She slowly raised one hand, then she pointed toward the basement. Daniel looked toward the direction she was pointing. When he turned back, the girl was gone. There was nobody in the hallway. Daniel's heart was pounding. He searched the entire upstairs floor. Nothing. Then the lights suddenly came back on. Daniel stood alone in the hallway, but from somewhere deep inside the house, he heard 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock.